And welcome back to Punchline. Thanks for staying with us. Once a model setting, Kilimani is now getting a bad name for some of the capital's most shocking crimes that had one social media user describe it as a place to die for. Quite literally. Drugs, prostitution, fraud and even murder is becoming synonymous with what for many residents should have been a quiet family neighborhood. Joining us now to discuss Kilimani gangs and crime in general in our communities is police spokesman Charles Owino and Kilimani Foundation Project Chairman Irungu Houghton. And welcome to you both. Charles, I want to start with you and Kilimani. Before we speak more broadly now, there has been a perception that Kilimani is quickly becoming a gangland in Nairobi with shootings and fraud hitting headlines. Would you say that there has been a significant rise in crime in this area in the past year as compared perhaps to other communities in the capital? And what would you say is fueling it?
Thank you so much. First of all, it is important to state that Kilimani has grown quite fast. This is an area that we had homes, set up of homes, gated homes, and eventually we have developed kind of flats. It is in Kilimani that we are getting well-established apartments of good quality, and many people live in Kilimani. So we have furnished apartments in Kilimani. We also have the highest number of clubs in Kilimani area, and the population has grown. But from where I sit, I think we've done well in terms of management of crime in Kilimani, because a few years ago, we had a lot of house breakings, we had a lot of car breakings, people following others from the bank and stealing from them. Right. You remember the famous Lavender Akinyi, who was good at organizing crimes, especially breaking into people's houses. So much of these people have been arrested, have been charged before court. But now what we have seen in Kilimani area are kind of white-collar jobs, where we have people dealing in gold, especially people who deceive, they cheat, and they con people, and they deal with large sums of money. So we've had that group of people. The CID in Kilimani have carried out raids, and we have managed to break up the syndicate. But remember, Kilimani having been an area that is occupied mainly by middle-class people with a large number of clubs, with very good furnished apartments and so on and so forth, you find that definitely we will have to get a few of white-collar crimes within that particular place. But generally, we've done well. We've done so well in managing crime in Kilimani. There
is, though, growing concern that these supposed gangs, who you have said are dealing white-collar crime, are known to the public, including the nightclubs, which you've mentioned, that they operate from, but somehow they continue to be seen to operate with reckless abandon. Why do certain individuals appear to be untouchable?
I don't think there's anybody who is untouchable within that area. We've taken most of the ringleaders of, especially those dealing in gold nuggets and so on and so forth. We've taken most of them to court, including, you remember about some 1 month or two ago, there was some mugging that took place within Kilimani, where somebody, some two gentlemen robbed an individual who was robbed him of his laptop and his phones, and it was circulating in social media. I think it just took us 4 days to have those individuals nabbed and the laptop and the phones recovered.
But take, for instance, spokesman, I beg your pardon, the case of Chris Obure. Before the shooting to death of Kevin Omwenga, he was reportedly caught up in gun drama more than once, yet he continued to have a license to carry. From a law enforcement perspective, what is the challenge in dealing with some of these cases before they turn deadly?
The position is that the case of Chris Obure is not something that somebody can say that we've not dealt with. an individual actually reported him to have threatened, that he threatened that individual with his firearm. And CID Kilimani arrested him and had him charged. Unfortunately, the complainant did not go to court severally, and therefore Chris had to be discharged from court. But even when he was discharged from court, the police in Kilimani, more so the DCIO, wrote to the board that licenses civilian firearms and forwarded the firearms to the board so that he could the firearms could be taken away from him. But as a matter of law, from the information we have from the board, is that the gentleman went to court and got court orders for the firearms to be returned. That is the information we've gotten. But actually the police did their part, and I'm sure the board also did their part. And remember, almost everything that we do must be done in accordance to the law. The fact that somebody puts on a good suit and we can say mutia vituko does not mean that you'll just pick him without any proper reason. Right. And deal with him. You must deal with him in accordance to the law, and I think so far we did our best.
Joining me now is Irungu Houghton. Irungu, I hope you can hear us. He is the chair of the Kilimani Project Foundation board. Irungu, the website of your organization reads in part, and I quote, "The community is known for its creativity, aliveness, tenacity, and neighborliness. The area rarely experiences violence, crime, or a sense of isolation," end quote. Yet here we are with the reality of a new Kilimani, where numerous massage spas, which are a euphemism for brothels, populate residential areas, and where within, I think, a span of 2 weeks or so, 2 young residents of Kilimani were murdered. A young woman, Shilan Murage, found dead in a flower bed, having apparently sustained blunt force trauma injuries to the head, and Kevin Omwenga, who was shot dead. From your perspective, engaging with the community, what is going on, and does it seem to you that the area has now attracted a deadly criminal element?
So first of all, I think we need to recognize that Kilimani is one of Nairobi's older suburbs. In the 3,000 acres, there are 43,000 people, and as the police spokesperson says, there are it is now a mixed residential and business area. What is causing the level of crime is not just the criminality or the crimes that you've described. And before maybe I go into that, just to say I don't wish to minimize the death of either Kevin Omwenga or Sheila Murage, or even the shooting of Felix Orinda, otherwise known as DJ Evolve. These were tragic cases. But I think we need to put this into context. Comparatively to many other parts of Nairobi, Kilimani is still fairly peaceful. We have probably one homicide a month, which if you compare that to places like Pangani or any of the eastern part of Nairobi, these are extremely low numbers for most of the wards of Nairobi. But having said that, there is a critical problem that comes with another C, not crime, but corruption and neglect. What is destroying Nairobi, what is destroying Kilimani is the lack of regulation, the lack of zoning, and the lack of adherence to building bylaws. So we are seeing a proliferation of different constructions. We have a number of different apartments that are going up. Just to give an example, despite having a zoning regulation of 4 levels, we are now seeing something like 20-story buildings coming up with about 900 units. And that is what, as the police spokesperson has said, makes Kilimani so difficult, because essentially what you have is not a family zone or a residential zone. What you have is the beginnings of a CBD or a central business district that is just not regulated. So we are being failed by the building bylaws not being enforced, by the construction committees, and by the alcohol licensing committees that are essentially being allowed, or rather being bribed, to allow for all kinds of activity to happen in the same space. So it is possible to have a so-called massage parlor, a bar, residential homes, and also to have buildings with large numbers of businesses that are not registered, that are essentially being used for white-collar crime. So that is primarily the challenge that the people of Kilimani have.
And because
but the reason why we say this in our website.
Right. Just hold that thought, because you've made an interesting point that nature of flouting of laws and regulations also provides the ground or the space for other criminality. I think impunity is one word that has been used to describe the way in which some of these gangs operate. That they seem to be well known to law enforcement and to everybody. Everybody knows something fishy is going on with someone, and as the police spokesman has said, that just because people are extra colorful, that does not give them the mandate to deal with them up until the law has been broken. How would you say impunity is factoring largely then into other suburbs where we're seeing a rise in crime, Irungu? How does that operate, with police on the one hand also being blamed for, turning a blind eye to some of these things?
I think there are a number of things that are happening. So the experience we have as Kilimani is probably paid out across the other 84 wards across Nairobi. Uncontrolled urban growth, a lack of bylaws, allow for example, soft drugs and narcotics to be essentially sold in very many of our neighborhoods across Nairobi. And this is the same from places like Langata, South B, to places like Mathare and Dandora. So I think the challenge really is to really create a culture in which communities are given the space to work with the Nairobi Metropolitan Service and the County of Nairobi to ensure that there are physical plans for these areas, that any building that is done in these areas has input and buy-in by communities, so that you don't have this proliferation without any sense of control. I think the third thing that needs to happen is that you need to see a responsiveness from the local government to the interest of communities to get involved. Just to give an example, we have written, as the Kilimani Project Foundation, on behalf of Kilimani residents, 4 letters to the Nairobi Metropolitan Service talking about buildings that do not meet the current bylaws for green spaces or for height, or for the proximity to major junctions. And those letters are ignored. So I think this is one of the biggest challenges. But as a community, we have been very dynamic. We have been very active. We're one of the communities, for example, that had a COVID-19 response plan within the first 2 weeks of the COVID-19 breakout. We have provided support for about 400 women who became unemployed. These are domestic workers. They were coming into the area from places like Kangware and Kibra. And as a result of our work, these women now have a community-based organization, and they have begun to develop their own cottage industry to be able to do that. And just to say also that the relationship between the local police and the Kilimani community has been on the whole a very good relationship. We have a lot of confidence in the Directorate of Criminal Investigation. We have confidence in the office in charge of the police station and the police service that are there. And of course, it's not that we don't have problems with the odd bribery and extortions, but on the whole, the crime levels of Kilimani will be managed essentially by increasing the interaction between our police and the community in this area. And unlike other communities, we've not seen high levels of police brutality. We've not seen high levels of extrajudicial killings. This is generally an example that can be exported to different parts of the country, where communities, when working with the police service, can actually close down the space for criminals, but can also make sure that there is a humane policing that takes place.
All right, as we wind up...
We are one community, for example, that has managed to stop 4 nightclubs in this area.
Right. Sorry about that. Spokesman, beyond Kilimani, it is arguable that there are hundreds of the quote-unquote Chris Obures all across the country whose wealth or dubious dealings are well known but appear to operate under some kind of protection. And I know you said that there is none for them, but they are believed to work as proxies for the political class and to receive some kind of protection in exchange. Are these crews linked to politicians, those who you have said are perpetuating white-collar crime? And is this something that the police are investigating at all?
I don't think politicians have anything to do with the activities that we see in Kilimani, save for situations like where Irungu is saying that there could be impunity in terms of planning and management within these particular places. Though as police, we don't experience that directly. But as residents, I'm sure maybe that could be a point of concern. But that would be addressed by the county government. But I don't think there are politicians that are involved in activities there, whether it is people dealing with the famous wash business, gold nuggets and so on and so forth. I don't think politicians are involved. But there was one incident where a politician was involved in a shooting incident. And if you look at even the cases that we are raising, whether it is case for Chris Obure or the case for the politician who shot, these are acquaintances, these are friends. This is not crime that you can say that some criminals have come into Kilimani and they are out there to harass people, to mug people and do such like things. These are, if you look at the serious crimes that have taken place, it's between acquaintances and people who are very close and who are friends. And in the two, out of the three, except the one involving the lady, they involve persons with licensed firearms. So Kilimani, basically, if you look at it, being a middle class area and given the mushrooming of apartments and bars, you may also assume that there could be high circulation of money with individuals around that place. And that could also be an attraction to criminals. But so far, the criminals have been put at bay, they have been managed, and those who have tried have been arrested. So I think so far so good. The police officers in the area have done a very good job. But save for the few situations, the few cases which are there, I think they are manageable, and so far we've done well.
Finally, spokesman, you know, in this COVID period and lockdown and curfews and all of that, how would you describe crime across the country? Would you say there has been a marked decrease? In some cases, we're hearing of a marked increase, for instance, in gender-based violence cases. On the whole, how would you describe the impact of COVID-19 to crime?
Basically, because you see we have had curfews, it means that movement for individuals are limited, and that definitely limits crime. And we have not only seen a decrease in crime, we have also seen a decrease in road accidents, especially when buses are not moving at night, because we get a lot of accidents at night involving buses. And also criminals, the movement of people. When there are many people moving on the roads at night, then there are chances of criminals even waylaying them, and therefore increasing the chances of people committing crime or people getting attacked by criminals, because they are moving around looking for attacking people and maybe robbing them and getting money. So far, the crime rate has definitely gone down. But you would also find crimes involving persons. Somebody may be assaulting the other or maybe stabbing the other. We still have a few cases here and there. And even when you go across our borders, you've seen we are slightly more peaceful, though we are quite vigilant along the borders, but we are slightly more peaceful. We have lesser incidents. And so I think we have done so well during the COVID period.
All right, that's our time. Police spokesman Charles Owino, and thanks very much, Irungu Houghton of the Kilimani Project Foundation. Time for us to take a short break. On the other side of this break, we explore the world of COVID millionaires. And KEMSA board chair Kembi Gitura joins us to set the record straight. We're talking after this.